I will just go ahead and then I will just welcome. Welcome. I will give it to this one. I will just go ahead.
Yes, sir. You can start, sir.
Okay. So let me take the pleasure of welcoming Engineer S. Shivakandan, Chairman, ICI Puducherry Center.
Yes.
Engineer S. Suresh, VP, Vice President, ICI South. Engineer VR Ajit Chandran, and our speaker of the day, Dr. Muttaram Madam, to this 36th webinar, and the first webinar to be organized along with us from Indian Concrete Institute, Puducherry Center. In fact, let me just give a brief of the webinars that we have been conducting, and then I will hand it over to you, Shivakandan sir. After I just over the last few weeks, we have been conducting number of webinars on various topics, ranging from blended cement to smart city to concrete proportioning to reinforcement detailing, on various topics of interest. We also had a virtual conference on geotechnical engineering, RAGI 2020, which was conducted in collaboration with ACCI Mysore, Indian Geotechnical Society, then we had National Institute of Engineering, SJC Mysore. So all of us together came together and conducted this 4-day webinar from May 14 to 17, wherein we covered various aspects of geotechnical engineering. So I am sure that today's lecture by Madam would be one of, which would give another different perspective. So that is one thing. And second thing is that we also had webinars which we organized in collaboration with ICI Hyderabad Center as well. Engineer P. Srinivas Reddy had come. He had spoken about repair and rehabilitation. In fact, there was so much interest generated on this particular subject. There were a number of questions and number of viewership was also very, large because of the newness of the topic and the various challenges that were there. So like that, we had speakers from across the country. We had from West Bengal, from Odisha, from Tamil Nadu, from Kerala, from Karnataka, from Delhi. So that was one very good advantage that we had, and there was a wide exchange of knowledge, very good interaction, and this will keep continuing, I'm sure. And with support from Indian Concrete Institute, professional bodies like Indian Concrete Institute, Association of Consulting Civil Engineers, and other professional bodies, I am sure that it will go ahead. So with those few words, let me welcome Mr. Shivakandan to welcome the gathering, as well as the construction professionals to this webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of Indian Concrete Institute, Puducherry chapter, I take this opportunity to greet and welcome our South Vice President and our special guest today, Engineer S. Suresh, to this webinar. Welcome, sir. I also extend my warm welcome to our eminent speaker, Dr. Muttaram from Anna University, who is going to take over this webinar for the next 1 hour. Welcome, madam.
Thank you,
I also extend my warm welcome to our engineer Anil Kumar Pillai, who is the panelist here, and we have seen him a lot of performance on stage. Now he has been rocking in a webinar. It is supposed to be the 36th. I have been watching him for a number of programs conducted by Ramco. And at this juncture, I would like to thank Ramco for supporting. This is actually, in fact, the first webinar for ICI Puducherry chapter. And you have extended your support, sir. Thank you. And I should mention Engineer Prabhu, who have been coordinating for this program. I also extend my warm welcome to all the participants from Indian Concrete Institute, Pansia engineers from Federation are also participating in this event. So I take this opportunity to greet and welcome to all the August gathering who are here to attend this webinar. Thank you. With this few opening remarks, I'm handing over the session to our special guest, our engineer S. Suresh, our Vice President South of Indian Concrete Institute. Sir, you can take over, sir. Thank you.
Good evening to all members of the ICA fraternity and other invited guests. I am delighted to speak to you all through this webinar organized by Indian Concrete Institute Puducherry Center in coordination with the Ramco Cements Limited. And I would like to place on records my sincere appreciation to Puducherry Center for the same. When we are all quarantined in one way or other, this kind of webinars bring us closer online and provide us an opportunity to listen to and to interact with one another. And this fulfills one of the prime objective of ICA, namely the knowledge dissemination. As you are all aware, ICA is the most vibrant professional body with more than 13,000 enrolled members from 42 regional centers with 257 student chapters spread across the entire country. These kind of webinars knit the people together and enlighten us who is who and what is what in terms of latest technologies, materials, and processes. The technical documents authored by our technical committees on topics of importance is the Handbook on Precast Constructions of Buildings, Fiber Reinforced Concrete, Durability of Concrete, Recycling of Aggregates from C&D waste, and Industrial Floorings and so on are very valuable documents for which ICA members can have free access. ICA also conducts value-added courses in concrete for the benefit of practicing engineers and students. ICA has signed MOU with other concrete institutes like Singapore Concrete Institute of Australia, Concrete Institute of Korea, American Concrete Institute, RILAM, for exchange of technical informations, technical documents, and to organize programs jointly. The topic chosen for today's webinar is of paramount importance. The prohibitive cost of land has forced to go for vertical skyscrapers and tall structures with multi-level basement floors being the solutions to win over the skyrocketing land cost. As a result, deep foundations for such tall structures necessitated deep excavations, either open or closed, which calls for thorough knowledge in soil mechanics, earth retaining techniques, supporting elements, excavation techniques, and extraordinary safety measures to be followed. Such deep foundations in an urban area where constraints will be too many is a real challenge. Today, we are going to listen to an eminent speaker, Dr. D. Mutharam, the professor of College of Engineering, Anna University, who is going to enlighten us on deep excavations in urban area. I am sure the participants will carry a lot listening to the speaker. Before concluding my speech, I would like to appeal to all those who are not members of ICA to become members and be a part of this premier institute. Please log on to the website www.indianconcreteinstitute.org and for further details. Thank you, one and all.
Introduction of Dr. M. Mutharam. Dr. M. Mutharam is a professor at the Department of Civil Engineering, CEG at Anna University, and now heading the Division of Soil Mechanics and Foundation Engineering. She obtained her bachelor's in civil engineering from Madras University in 1992 and her master's from Anna University in the field of hydrology and water resources in 1995. She subsequently obtained a doctoral degree in the field of soil mechanics and foundation engineering from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, India in 2001. She pursued a postdoctoral research at Institut National Polytechnique de Grenelle, France from 2002 to 2003, which was funded by French Higher Education Ministry and has worked as CSIR Research Associate for about 3 years. She started her academic year as a lecturer at CEG, Anna University in 2003 and was promoted to Associate Professor in 2006 and then Professor in 2014. She has published more than 40 papers in national and international journals and at conferences. She has also served as the Secretary of Chennai chapter of the Indian Geotechnical Society for 5 years and is currently an executive committee member of the same chapter.
Handing over to you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Very good evening to one and all present here. It's my pleasure to make the presentation on deep excavation in urban area, challenges and modern techniques. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Indian Concrete Institute, Puducherry Center, the office bearers of this ICI for considering me to make this presentation. The sequence of my presentation is as follows. After a brief introduction, I will be touching upon the challenges encountered during excavation and different methods of support system available to support the soil. Then what is the current trend, the modern technology available for deep excavation. After that, I will be discussing 2 case studies in which one of my PhD scholars obtained her doctoral degree. So I will be discussing about those case studies. Based on her study, we could develop some design chart and empirical equation for the design of diaphragm wall, which would be very useful for practicing engineers, especially during the initial stages. So I'll be presenting that. Finally, I would summarize my presentation. In fact, Engineer Suresh Subramanian has made my job very simple. He has already introduced about the importance of today's topic. As we all know that India is a highly populated country, and due to rapid economic growth and as well as because of the interest in this IT field, numerous deep excavation projects are coming up, and we are forced to use the space available. Either we can think of going for high-rise buildings, or otherwise we can go for construction of basement floors. If it is urban area, the cost of land is unbearable. We cannot afford to buy more land space. In that situation, what we can do is we can think of going for basement floors. The new constructions are considering the utilization of this space, and they go for more than some 3, even 4 minus floors, that is basement floors. In those areas, if we want to excavate for such a deeper level, then we have to properly give support. Otherwise, what happens is the excavation is going to change the existing stress condition, and it will be disturbing the existing equilibrium. Because of that, the soil is going to be unstable. And added to that, if we have any high-rise building nearer to the excavation site, then it is going to pose problem to the construction engineer. So in order to give safer solution for excavation, we need to give support system. The different challenges we encounter are, number one, lateral movement of the soil. So once if we excavate the soil, what happens is, initially the soil is in at rest condition. From at rest condition, soil will change its state to nearly active. In that case, what happens? Lateral movement of the soil occurs. This lateral movement, the magnitude of lateral movement of the soil is function of the type of the soil and the surcharge which is present. The surcharge could be due to the nearest building, or otherwise the equipments whatever we use. And then the lateral movement is function of the depth of excavation, how deep we excavate. And apart from that, if we encounter groundwater table at a shallow depth, really it is a challenge, because when we excavate, water is going to move into our excavation. In that case, seepage of water would be present. So shallow water level is a real challenge for the construction engineer. And the next thing is, if we have adjacent building, and if that building is a high-rise building, we need to take care of the foundation of the building. If you have, let us say, the adjacent building is having a deep foundation, in those locations, we cannot go for soil anchoring, soil reinforcement, because our reinforcement will be touching the existing foundation. So depending upon the type of foundation they have adapted for the adjacent building, we need to choose proper excavation support. And the other challenge, whatever we could face, is underground utilities. Before start of excavation, we should have the idea regarding what are all the different underground utilities already present in that locality, because we should not destroy those underground utilities. That is very, very important. And another challenge is accessibility of the site, because in most of the times in urban area, already the site is congested, and though it is congested, whether we have accessibility to the site, is it possible for us to take all our necessary equipments to that site is very important. And the next thing is available space for construction. The meaning of this is, olden days, if they go for excavation, generally they would have adopted, sloping site. But now, because we don't have sufficient space, we are not able to use the waste the space. In that situation, we need to go for vertical cut. Our excavation is going to be vertical in shape. So most of the time, the slope angle is going to be 90 degrees. If we have this 90 degrees slope, then what happens is we need to provide proper support system. Otherwise, it is very difficult to execute our work without any failure. All these things mainly is a function of experience of the construction engineer, and then what is the local practice adapted. Because if we want to execute this excavation, if we approach any contractor, immediately he would be thinking of choosing a method in which already he has experience. So a proper support system is function of even the experience of that contractor, as well as what is the local practice adopted in that locality, and moreover, what are all the different construction techniques and equipments available in that place. And we should not forget that our excavation support should also meet the code of practice. And finally, needless to say that cost of the project, though we want to give say economical solution, but not at the cost of safety. So we have to give safe as well as economical solution. And if we want to give a safer solution for excavation, different types of support systems are available. Those support systems, few of them I have listed here, starting with braced excavation, sheet pile wall, board pile wall. We can go for soil nailing, and finally diaphragm wall. Braced excavation is one of the conventional method adapted for supporting soil. You can see here in this line sketch, the different components of braced excavation includes, here we have sheet pile followed by horizontal members. This horizontal member known as a strut, and in longitudinal direction we have another horizontal member which is pale. So using this we can go for excavation. This is a conventional method of excavating. And here in this photograph you can see here this sheet pile, and we have wale member running, and here there is a horizontal strut member. If we use braced excavation, one of the problems we encounter is, see the working space. Here we have to excavate, and this working space would be like provided with so many horizontal members. So the space is not free to work. So that is one of the important constraints when we choose for braced excavation. Though it is a conventional method, it is the problem encountered is this free space is not available for our construction. And then we can go for sheet pile wall. Sheet pile wall are of two types. Either it could be cantilever sheet pile or otherwise anchored sheet pile. Generally, cantilever sheet pile is preferred provided the depth of excavation is less than 6 feet. Suppose if the depth of excavation exceeds 6 feet, then we need to go for anchored sheet pile. Even in anchored sheet pile, this depth of depending upon the embedment depth, either we can choose appropriate method, that is we can go for pre-earth support method of designing, or otherwise fixed earth support method of designing sheet pile wall. If using sheet pile wall, we cannot excavate the deeper level. Only for limited depth we can make use of this sheet pile wall. Okay, in this diagram, in this photograph, we can see a sheet pile wall with anchors. So anchored is being given here. This is the area available for our excavation. The next method available, especially in urban area, is bore to pile wall. Bore to pile wall is also a very popular technique used in urban area for deeper excavation. In bore to pile wall, we have got different varieties. One is intermittent piles. This is very simple in the sense the equipments, machineries, whatever we use for constructing conventional bore to pile may be adopted even here also. So regarding the methodology, regarding the equipment, we don't have any issues here because we can make use of the existing machineries available for making the pile. So in intermittent pile, from this line sketch, what you can see is here we have a pile. The spacing between the pile is going to be more than the diameter of the pile. So in this case, here soil would be there. The problem in intermittent pile is if the soil is something like a sandy soil, in that case we really encounter problem. And if we have water level at a shallow depth, then seepage of water would be there, and which may lead to failure of this intermittent pile. So depending upon the type of soil, we can go for it. Generally for clay soil, we can go for intermittent bore to pile wall as a support system. And here in this slide, you can see bore to pile wall, which is contiguous pile. Here in this line sketch, you can visualize this one pile is touching the other pile. So in this type of pile, there is no space between adjacent pile. Okay, so in that case, we can call this as contiguous pile. This photograph shows the constructed contiguous pile. This is also one of the popular methods available in our or adopted in our urban area to go for deeper excavation. Coming to the next bore to pile wall, it is a secant bore to pile wall. In secant bore to pile wall, there is interlocking between one pile and the other pile. There is an overlap. This is being constructed in 2 stages, and here you can see reinforcement in alternate piles and plain cement concrete in alternate pile. So this plain cement concrete piles are known as primary piles, and this reinforced cement concrete piles are known as secondary piles. The construction sequence is like first they would be inserting the casing. If casing is required, then first they would be inserting the casing. After the insertion of casing, this primary pile would be constructed. Primary pile is made up of lean concrete. They may not be using high grade concrete, because after making this circular pile, to construct the secondary pile, we are going to drill. We are going to drill, and then only secondary pile is being constructed. That is why the quality of concrete used for this primary pile is lean concrete. The purpose of this primary pile is only to arrest the seepage of water. Okay, so the secondary pile, since we give reinforcement, the stability is being enhanced. And here in the insert photograph, you can see secant pile. And here in this photograph also, you can see the secant pile. You can see that there is an overlap between adjacent piles. So these are bore to pile wall is also one of the famous techniques adopted for supporting the deep excavation, especially in urban area. Soil nailing is also a new technique. Soil nailing, the concept in soil nailing is, so far we could see bore to pile wall, and then here even sheet pile wall, and then braced excavation. In all these techniques, we have given support externally, means all these supports are passive supports. If the soil moves, then the supports are going to give the stability. Unlike in this case, in the case of soil nailing, it is an active support. Means this nail is being inserted into the soil, like how we insert reinforcement in concrete. But here in this reinforcement is going to enhance the inherent property of the soil. So this type of support system comes under active support. Always this nail is going to be active. Because of this insertion, this reinforcement is going to enhance the inherent strength. Now let me explain you how it is able to enhance the inherent strength. See, here this is the slip surface, failure surface along which the soil is going to slip. If we insert this nail, this nail is been interacting or counteracting this slip surface. Along the slip surface, we can resolve the nail forces in two directions. One is perpendicular to the direction of failure surface. The other one is tangential to the direction of nail surface. This perpendicular, that is normal component of this reinforcement force, is going to enhance the friction component. Since we know that the shear strength of the soil is governed by Moore-Coulomb equation, we can express the shear strength of the soil using the simplest Moore-Coulomb equation, where tau is equal to C plus sigma tan phi. In this equation, C is cohesion component and tan phi is from friction component. This tan phi friction component will be enhanced if the stress normal to the failure surface is increased. So when we provide this soil nail, what happens is the normal stress normal to the failure surface is increased, because additionally the normal component of reinforcement force would come, and then the tangential component of this reinforcement force is going to directly counteract the shear forces. Okay, so these are all the two benefits we can get if we go for soil nailing. Depending upon the type of the soil, depending upon the depth of excavation, we can go for soil nailing. And then coming to diaphragm wall, I can say diaphragm wall is one of the modern technology adopted for deep excavation. The way it has become gaining popularity is this diaphragm wall is a rigid wall, and the lateral movement is going to be restricted to a considerable limit. Whatever may be the required limit for lateral movement, it is possible for us to achieve using this diaphragm wall. So that's why I call this as modern technology. And nowadays we have this construction equipments. Several construction equipments are there. And the main principle behind the construction of diaphragm wall is using slurry supported trenches. We make a trench. The trench is going to be supported initially by slurry. The slurry is made using bentonite. The availability of bentonite really made our job very easy to go for diaphragm wall. Okay, so this photograph shows the diaphragm wall constructed in one of the excavation sites. Another important aspect in diaphragm wall is diaphragm wall, either it can be temporary support or permanent support, but mostly we would be designing diaphragm wall as a permanent support. In the sense, it can share some part of the load from the superstructure as well. So mostly diaphragm wall is designed as permanent structure. And one more thing, this diaphragm wall is being constructed as a panels. So the number of joints present in the diaphragm wall is reduced compared to say board pile wall. In board pile wall, though we go for secant pile or contiguous pile, there is a joint between one pile and the other pile. Number of joints are more. But in case of diaphragm wall, number of joints are less. Why we should bother about the joint is, if we encounter water table at a shallow level, through the joints water can seep in. So this will cause a problem. That is why we have to reduce the number of joints. In case of diaphragm wall, the number of joints are less, so it ultimately improves the water tightness, and it improves the stability of the wall. And since it is a rigid wall, the deflection of the wall itself is lesser, and easily we can make use of this even in the congested area. And the diaphragm wall, a few applications are, this is used as a retaining structure for deep basements of buildings and traffic underpasses, underground mass transit stations, and then even for parking garages, underground industrial facilities, and so on. Even in our Chennai Metro Rail, for those stations, they have used a diaphragm wall underground. Okay, so this underground mass transit station is being constructed using diaphragm wall. And other advantages I can say, depending from the perspective of construction engineering, we can make use of this diaphragm wall in any type of soil, irrespective of the type of the soil and irrespective of the depth, regardless, and as well as regardless of the presence of groundwater table, we can choose diaphragm wall construction. And one more thing, this construction of diaphragm wall simultaneously fulfills the task of sheeting, waterproofing, and load bearing. You see, all the three tasks is being met in one thing by constructing this diaphragm wall. And each and every phase of operation is mechanized. We have machines to execute this construction work. And the noise, whatever we get during its construction is very less. So we can easily adopt this method. Even in a confined space, we can make use of this technique. And then it has got excellent properties as a load-bearing material, especially when we go for basement floors. I can say that diaphragm wall is going to be one of the best methods of support system, because we can design the diaphragm wall such that it shares part of the load from the superstructure also. And its stiffness is increased by giving buttresses. When we construct diaphragm wall, we can give buttress, and even we can give anchorages also. Anchorages at different levels depending upon the depth of excavation. We have to anchorage properly this diaphragm wall so that we get required stability. And since this diaphragm wall is constructed in sections, we can easily carry out this diaphragm wall construction. And there is no major surface gradings are required before making trenching. Before making trenching, we don't need to worry much about that particular size. And as I mentioned during our discussion on braced excavation, it doesn't give clear sight. Braced excavation doesn't give clear sight. But in this case, diaphragm wall would give simple and clear sight compared to the other traditional foundation pit. See, so far I could discuss about several advantages of diaphragm wall. Engineers, we should be aware of the disadvantages first, because we should not make any mistake during construction. When we make any mistake, then we have to pay a lot for it. So the disadvantages, what I could say here is, the quality of diaphragm wall after construction mainly depends upon the equipment we have used and what is the type of the soil on which we have excavated. And then since we use bentonite slurry for constructing this diaphragm wall, the quality of concrete, whatever we get after construction, need to be verified. And the quality could be verified only after our construction, and that too through indirect means. Directly, we cannot check the quality of wall, whatever we could get. The other disadvantages, what I can say is, suppose if the site is we have to construct this diaphragm wall in open water, and in the layer where we have artesian water, and if we have a poorly compacted fill, and in case if we have a near existing buildings adjacent to this one, and if we have unknown sewers, caverns, public utilities, etc. In that case, we have to prepare the ground, then only we can go for this technique. And in case of coarse grained soil, there is going to be heavy loss of bentonite slurry. So if more loss of bentonite slurry is anticipated, in that case, we have to be very careful in using this technique. I don't say that it is impossible. It is possible. We should be careful about executing diaphragm wall when we encounter these conditions. Now let us briefly go through the construction sequence of diaphragm wall. Let us say this is the length of the wall to be constructed. This length will not be constructed in one single stretch. This entire length is going to be divided into different panels. Let us say here we have panel 1, and then once this first panel is being constructed, we would be moving on to the second panel, which would be starting from the other end of our excavation. This will not be constructed continuously. We start from one end, then we go to the other end, we construct the second panel, then again we would be coming to this second end. In that way, we would be proceeding our construction of diaphragm wall. Now here you see, this is our proposed first panel, let us say. Prior to construction of this first panel, we need to construct a guide wall. Guide wall design is very important, because guide wall is going to guide the construction of diaphragm wall. So in this diagram, here top one horizontal line, I hope you could see. This is the top level of the guide wall. Then this line indicates the existing ground level. Then afterwards, this is the length of the panel. Generally, length of the panel is decided as something like 2.5 times the this breadth of the grabbing equipment, whatever we have. So if B is the breadth of the grabbing equipment, we are going to design our first panel length as if it is approximately 2.5 times the breadth of this panel. And this after constructing guide wall, this grab is used to remove the soil. Simultaneously, while removing this soil, simultaneously bentonite slurry will be continuously allowed to enter into this opening. So at any point of our excavation, there is no open space. Always this excavation is being filled with slurry. That is why this technique is known as slurry supported trench. So after removing this entire cutting, this area is being filled with bentonite slurry. And in the next step, at the ends of this panel, what we would be doing is we would be inserting the stop end tube. The very purpose of introducing this stop end tube is we have to have proper connectivity between one panel and the other panel. In the previous slide, you could witness that this entire diaphragm wall is being constructed as a number of panels. So there should be a proper connection between one panel and the other panel. That is why we introduce a stop end panel. This is the second step in the construction sequence. Then after introducing stop end panel, then this reinforcement cage is being inserted. Then after inserting reinforced cage using treble pipe, concrete is being poured. Since we know the density of concrete is about 25 kilonewton per meter cube, already this particular opening is being filled with bentonite slurry, whose density would be around 10.5 or 11 kilonewton per meter cube. That is why when we pour this concrete, this dense concrete can easily go and reach the bottom of our excavation, and the slurry will come up. This slurry will come up, and this entire portion is being filled with concrete. Then we have to allow for this setting of this concrete. Once the concrete is set, we can understand that the first panel construction is over. After completion of the first panel, then the stop end tube is being removed and the next panel is being constructed. So in this way, we can construct this diaphragm wall. So from the procedure, you should have understood that always this trench is being filled with slurry. So it is never left as it is. That is why the stability is ensured. And here are few photographs which you can witness that this is the grabbing equipment used for construction of this diaphragm wall. And this is a stop end tube. Stop end tube is being lifted for erection. And this is the close-up view of excavating this camshell, which is excavating a slurry trench. And in this slide, you can see that reinforcement cage. This is based on the bending moment, whatever we expect in the diaphragm wall. Already we should have designed the reinforcement detailing. So this is the form. This reinforcement cage is being inserted into the trench, and then this trench is being filled with the concrete. This photograph shows the construction of guide wall prior to constructing diaphragm wall. And this is one of the reinforcement detailing for guide wall. In this photograph, you could see the close-up view. This is guide wall. This is guide wall, and this is the thickness of D wall. Depending upon the thickness of D wall, we have to leave the gap, and then this guide wall need to be constructed. Close-up view of reinforcement cage used for one of the panels in that site. And if our site is the shape of the site is either rectangular or square, then in that case the corner panel is going to have the L shape. So this is the reinforcement cage for corner panel. And in the reinforcement cage, this is the provision given to lift this reinforcement cage prior to inserting into the trench. This is the photograph which shows the diaphragm wall. This is the top level of the diaphragm wall, and this is guide wall. This is guide wall. This is stop end tube. top end tube is being lifted. Now, if you want to design the diaphragm wall, first of all, we should be aware of different factors which would influence the stability of the slot. The forces which would stabilize the trench are the supporting of the guide wall and the internal strength of the soil. So we have the guide wall. Guide wall is being constructed, and this trench is being filled with slurry. So we need to know what are the internal strength of the soil. And the disturbing forces acting in opposition to cause the failure are maybe hydrostatic pressure, self-weight of the adjacent soil, and the surcharges and other forces which would act adjacent to the excavation. For our design, we have to consider all the forces. And this line sketch shows how do we design, how do we arrive at the forces acting on the system. I'll just give a hint. I may not explain everything. I hope you remember different theories available for calculating the lateral air pressure. Either you can go for Coulomb's theory or Rankine's theory. In this particular slide, the lateral air pressure is being calculated using Rankine's theory. According to Rankine's theory, we can get lateral air pressure at any level, that is horizontal stress at any level is equal to K multiplied by vertical stress, where K is coefficient of lateral air pressure. Depending upon whether the soil is going to be in at-rest condition, active condition, or whatever, we have to calculate the lateral air pressure. Generally, during the construction of diaphragm wall, initially the soil will be in at-rest condition. But once the excavation starts, from at-rest, the soil will be moving to active state. There may not be complete mobilization of active state. The state of the soil would be between at-rest and active state. But what I suggest is we can take as if the soil would achieve active condition, and then we can design our this slot. Because if we consider at-rest condition, the design is not going to be economical. That is why I suggest active state. But if you are not very sure about the mobilization of this shearing resistance, then you can think of at-rest condition. So at any level, we have to get the lateral air pressure. In this diagram, I have shown Rankine's theory. So Ka multiplied by vertical stress is lateral stress. And the stabilizing forces from the slurry filled in this trench. The stabilizing force at any level is equal to unit weight of the slurry multiplied by the height of the slurry. So the factor of safety available is this stabilizing effect of this slurry divided by the horizontal or lateral air pressure. So easily we can check whether we have got the required factor of safety. Suppose if the factor of safety is lesser than 1, then what we can do is either we can increase the unit weight of this slurry, or otherwise we can raise the level of slurry in the trench. Suppose even after increasing the level of trench, if the equilibrium condition is not met, what I would suggest is to kindly increase the height of this guide wall. Guide wall can be projected even above the ground level, and then we can increase the level of slurry above the ground level so that the stabilizing effect is being increased. So that is in our part. We can decide in the field whether we want to increase the level of the slurry or to increase the unit weight of the slurry. I may not suggest to increase the unit weight of the slurry. Why? Because in the slurry trench, we are going to insert the reinforcement cage, then we are going to pour the concrete. So this slurry is going to coat the reinforcement. If we use slurry with the higher density, what would happen? Its viscosity is higher, it would be coating the reinforcement. The quality of wall, whatever we get, may not be that much encouraging. That is why I suggest to keep this unit weight of the slurry not more than say 11. The 10.5 to 11 kilonewton per meter cube is ideal. So far, I could just give an idea regarding different types of support system and what is a diaphragm wall and so on. Now, I would like to share my experience in 2 case studies. The first study area, which is available in Noida, there they have constructed a diaphragm wall, and the other study area is in Bangalore. I just want to share few information, whatever I could get from this study area. Hope it will be useful. So the first study area, which is located in Noida. Here, our job is to construct a G plus 13 story with a combined basement of 3 basement floors. Okay, so here to carry out the work in this study area, rigorous subsoil investigation is being carried out. For any work related to geotechnical engineering, without a subsoil investigation, we cannot execute, because the type of support system is function of what is the type of the soil present in that site. So definitely we have to go for rigorous subsoil investigation. And here in this site, in subsoil investigation is being carried out by drilling by the borehole and conducting SPT test. Then after rigorous subsoil investigation, soil profile is being prepared based on the type of the soil present. It has been decided to go for diaphragm wall. So I will just show this site map. This is the site map of study area 1, and in this study area, 23 numbers of borehole is being drilled. Based on this borehole, we were able to get the depth and what is the SPTN value and what is the type of the soil encountered. And in this particular site, almost up to the excavation depth, the type of soil encountered is sandy soil. All of you know that excavation in sandy soil is a real challenging task. At least if the soil is having cohesion, then up to a depth of 4C by gamma, no support is required. If the soil is sandy soil, definitely we have to provide support. Okay, so this first in this first study area, the type of soil present is sandy soil. That is why it is been proposed to go for diaphragm wall. And here in this diaphragm wall, this is the shape of the excavation. This is the shape of the excavation. Depending upon the presence of adjacent building, 2 thickness of diaphragm wall have been chosen, because in one of the sides here in this side, the adjacent building is not present. That is why here in one of the sides, 600 mm thick diaphragm wall is being designed. For the other 3 sides, 800 mm thick diaphragm wall is being designed. And moreover, in 600 mm diaphragm, in this side, there was some space available. That is why here 2-level anchoring is being given. For 800 mm thick diaphragm wall, 3-level anchorage have been given. This is the D wall with anchors in the study area 1. This is one of the corners. This right hand side, you could see diaphragm wall. This diaphragm wall thickness is 800 mm. I think you can visualize the 3-level anchoring. 3-level anchors have been given. And here on the other side, this is here in this side, 600 mm thick diaphragm wall, 2-level anchors have been given. And in this site, instrumentation is being carried out. The wall deflection, lateral movement of the soil is being observed. Using that lateral movement of the soil, some design chart have been developed. Here, this particular slide shows the type of the soil encountered in the first study area and its corresponding SPTN value of the soil. Since the soil is sand, we are forced to go for diaphragm wall. And I want to show only one excavation scheme. This is the excavation scheme for 800 mm D wall. For this 800 mm D wall, 3-level anchoring is being given. When we provide this anchor, we should see to that this anchorage is not penetrating any adjacent foundation present. So the position of anchoring is very, very important. And added to that, the anchorage, this grouting should be done in the area beyond this active zone. So this from the bottom of the D wall, if you draw a failure surface, in this portion, the soil would be definitely between at rest and active state. So we need to place our grouting beyond this zone. The adjacent structure, the type of the foundation of adjacent structure plays a major role in positioning these anchors and even deciding the length of the anchors. This entire thing is being analyzed using Plaxis software. The Plaxis software is a geotechnical software used for the design of foundation and so on. So we have used Plaxis software. For this analysis, we used Plaxis 2D, and using Plaxis 2D, we could obtain the displacement for this 800 mm thick wall. And this displacement, whatever we could get, is within the permissible limit. That is why we have proceeded. And from this analysis, we could get the shear force and bending moment diagram for the D wall. Based on this maximum shear force and bending moment diagram, structural design was carried out. I will not touch upon structural design because I am a geotechnical faculty. I concentrate only on geotechnical aspect of this excavation and construction of diaphragm wall. And in this particular site, instrumentation is being planned, and using inclinometers, lateral movement, that is horizontal displacement of the D wall is being measured. Using this inclinometer reading, and the data is being fed in the Plaxis software. Whatever analysis we made using Plaxis software is being compared with that of this actual field data, and we could find that it is acceptable. Since this is acceptable, we made a rigorous analysis. We made a rigorous analysis using Plaxis software by varying the thickness of D wall and the surcharge pressure, pre-stressing force of anchors, and number of anchors, the 2 anchors, 3 anchors, and as well the depth of embedment depth of this diaphragm wall. About a 650 analysis we carried out, and based on the analysis, we tried to develop an empirical equation. So this is one of the screenshot of geometry we created in the Plaxis software. Using the data, whatever we could, we have developed the correlation between this factor of safety. What is the factor of safety available with respect for the diaphragm wall thickness of 700 to 1000 mm. So if we choose the diagram, suppose if we opt to choose diaphragm wall whose thickness will vary from 700 mm to 1000 mm, maybe we can check what could be the factor of safety we could encounter, provided we have Q as the surcharge adjacent to our excavation. In the similar way, we have developed this equation to calculate the horizontal displacement. Again, for a D wall thickness varying from 700 mm to 1200 mm. And similarly, we could develop the correlation even for this shear force and surcharge. We can easily calculate or estimate, we can estimate how much could be the expected shear force for the given surcharge. In this equation, individually, each factor is being taken into consideration. But when, if it is a question of designing support system, we have to collectively take into account all the factors. So we made an attempt to develop an equation using another software. This is used JMP software, and then using the statical SPSS tool, we could develop this rigorous equation. And you see the dots 650 data have been used to develop this equation. So we have developed the equation to calculate the factor of safety, and then to calculate the horizontal displacement, and then shear force, finally bending moment, provided we know how much is the surcharge adjacent to the excavation, and what is the thickness of the diaphragm wall, and what is the depth of excavation, and what is going to be the pre-tensioning force, whatever we would give in the anchors. Why we made an attempt to develop this equation is, generally when we execute any work, the initial stage is preparing the estimate. So the for the primary design, we want to estimate what could be the expected deflection, and what could be the expected shear force and bending moment. So while floating the tenders, during that stage, we can make use of this equation, and then we can easily estimate these values. Because when we want to run the program, it takes several days to run the program, And moreover, we should have this facility of this Plaxis software also. Only then we can run. As a ready reckoner, we can make use of this equation and estimate the expected shear force and so on. I hope this will be to some extent useful during the preliminary stage of design of diaphragm wall. And coming to the second case study, why I have chosen this second case study is after doing rigorous detailed subsoil investigation and then after designing several support schemes, in one of the phases, the support system has failed. Because I should not just project only the positive aspect. I should also discuss about some failures, because generally people will never share their failure. What I feel is only if we share our failure, at least others may not make mistake. That is why I just thought of discussing this second study area, which is located in Bangalore. Here the requirement is to construct a G+10 floors with 3 to 4 basements, because in 3 buildings, 3 towers, in few towers it is 3 basement floor, in 1 tower it is 4 basement floor. I may not discuss about all those things. Wherever one of the support system is being failed, only that particular aspect I want to discuss in our presentation. And again, a detailed subsoil investigation is being carried out in this particular study area also. See the location. This is tower 6 and here tower 7 and tower 8. And in this case, already in this portion, there is one tower. We call that as tower 5. This tower 5 is already existing. And when we design the excavation scheme for this one, tower 6, we have not encountered any problem. Only in this tower 7 area, in this phase I call as phase D. This D phase has been collapsed. This has failed during construction. Actually, here we are not used diaphragm wall. In this side, contiguous pile is being used. Contiguous pile and soil nailing in these both for tower 7 and tower 6 location, soil nailing and contiguous piles are being adapted. So now let us see how it's been failed, why it has failed, and so on. And nearly initially 10 boreholes is being drilled in that area based on the soil profile. We have planned to go for either soil nailing as well as contiguous pile. And after during construction stage, since there the soil profile was erratic, 3 more additional boreholes were drilled, and we have reconfirmed what is the type of soil present in that site. And this slide shows the soil profile. We could see here again almost sandy silt followed by weathered rock. Okay, so at the bottom we have weathered rock. Since weathered rock was encountered about say 10 meters depth, it has been decided to go for contiguous pile, because we can rest the contiguous pile on this weathered rock. That was the intention. Look into this diagram, which shows the excavation scheme. This is the site layout. I would be discussing about only this portion, because here already tower 5 has been constructed, which is a G+8 structure, and the type of foundation for this is a raft foundation. For tower 5, the type of foundation is raft foundation, because when we want to excavate, we should bother about the foundation of the adjacent building also. We should not give trouble to the existing foundation. So in this case, since adjacent to this phase D, there is a heavily loaded structure, it has been decided to go for contiguous pile. This dark shaded portion shows the presence of designing of a contiguous pile. In this hatched portion, soil nailing was adopted. But soil nailing portion, there was no problem, because you see in this side also there is no load. Even here, adjacent to this portion, not heavily loaded structure was present. So we encountered trouble only in this phase D. Phase D. The phase D, when you look into this diagram again, phase D, at the end soil nailing, only in the middle portion contiguous pile. This dark portion is contiguous pile, end soil nailing. Here this is the photograph. This is the photograph of this phase D. This is here, this is contiguous pile. See here how nicely it has been constructed. This is contiguous pile, and here we have this ends, at the ends we have this nailed soil. But all of a sudden, after 1 or 2 days of construction, this contiguous pile is being failed. One of the piles started failing, and that made the other pile also to fall down. Okay, the next diagram. Here you see, this is the failed photograph. In this portion, earlier this contiguous pile have been constructed. This contiguous pile is being failed, but the soil, nothing has happened to soil nailing. Why I want to stress upon that here is, soil nailing uses the concept of increasing the inherent strength of the soil. But here this contiguous pile means it is giving external support. Since this nailed wall has enhanced the inherent strength of the soil, not much distress is being encountered in this portion. Now we can see the reason why it is being failed. Since here up to about 9 meters level, we have got weathered rock. So hard rock is also encountered. Another important thing is, when we try to plot the base top level of the rocky stratum, you see this graph is being drawn between pile and the depth of excavation. So this is the depth of excavation, or we can say this is the length of the pile. This is length of the pile, and here about 40 numbers of pile have been installed. This in the x-axis we have pile number. When you look into this particular graph, what we can understand is, the length of the pile is not uniform. See here, this red line indicates bottom level of the contiguous pile. So each pile is being terminated at a different level. The reason is, at that site, there during construction of this pile, they have encountered difficulty in drilling, because they used the boring technique to drill this pile. So since they assumed that they have encountered the hard stratum, they could stop the pile at a different level. So the bottom of the pile is not at the same level. And another reason why it has failed is, one is heterogeneous nature of the subsoil strata, especially the bottom of excavation, and the depth variation of weathered rock. Weathered rock is the thickness of the weathered rock is not uniform. At each pile location, the depth varied. In the short length itself, we could witness huge variation. And one more thing is, after constructing the diaphragm wall, because in this photograph you could witness that the contiguous pile wall. This contiguous pile is standing properly. What the mistake was here, closer to one of the pile bottom, which was having shorter length, they started excavating the berm. So that one particular pile has lost its anchorage, and that one pile started failing, which led to the failure of the other pile. Okay, that is one of the second reason. The second reason is the excess cutting of rock mass. Then the dynamic impact of construction equipment. Closer to the contiguous pile, they used this construction equipment for excavating. So the dynamic impact also played a major role in the failure of this particular phase. So this phase D is being failed. We have not stopped at that level. So since it has been failed, immediately in the site we have to take some precautionary measure, because adjacent to this site we have this tower pile which is resting on a raft. So immediately how this particular site is being protected is, people used the loose soil available in the site, backfilled that loose soil. By doing so, what we do is, we transfer this vertical cut into a inclined slope. Earlier the cut was vertical. because here contiguous pile was present. Now after failure, to enhance, we don't want the adjacent structure also to fail. So immediately this side slope is being flattened by backfilling the loose soil available over, and then top of this loose soil is being covered with sill pollen sheet, and sandbags have been kept, because this is a temporary support. Immediately at that site, after collapse of the contiguous pile, this was the provision made. And then see this photograph shows how what are all the temporary measures taken in the site, so that they protect the site and they prevent the failure of the adjacent building. And this is the remedial measure taken, because after we understood that this contiguous pile is being failed, immediately the design is being revised, and in this time it's been proposed to go for soil nailing. So soil nailing is being proposed, and just below the footing area of this tower pile, because we should take care of the adjacent structure also. So below the footing area of this adjacent structure, this grouted nail with the micro pile is being suggested, and away from this footing area of the tower pile, only this grouted nail is being suggested. Now this construction is over, and even the tower is being completed. No problem in excavation, no problem in design, constructing the basement. So with this, I would like to sum up the today's presentation. In today's presentation, we discussed about the diaphragm wall, its importance, and based on the rigorous analysis made using Plaxis software, we have developed some empirical equation may be useful for the design engineers, especially during the primary stage of design. And then we cannot take any support system for granted. The choice of a suitable support system really plays a major role in the stability of excavation. So after designing, during excavation also, we have to be alert in safeguarding the adjacent structure, as well as safeguarding our excavation. That is why in today's presentation, I have discussed two case studies. One is on diaphragm wall, the other one is on the contiguous pile wall. Unfortunately, it has failed, but still I wanted to share this information so that in future, these kind of failures would not occur. And these are all few publications made based on our work on deep excavation. If you are interested, you can refer to our this publication. A few references I referred, and I'd like to acknowledge, or I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Jasmine Nisha, my PhD scholar. It is her work. I just guided, and whatever information I shared is doctoral work of Jasmine Nisha. And few photographs I googled and I could post it here. I thank the source for taking the photographs. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for that interesting presentation. In fact, I just went back to those days when I was associated with a site in New Delhi where Parliament Library project, we had this diaphragm walling to be made. And there are so many challenges, all the challenges which you have presented, we could just the bentonite slurry going into the earth and all that, stabilizing them, and then lowering the reinforcement cage, and then concreting and things like that. So it was a very challenging experience during those times. It was in the year 2000 actually. There was not much practical studies also on diaphragm walling, but we could make it. So viewing that, it was a very interesting this thing. And there is a couple of questions from the participants. One of the questions that they are asked is why bentonite slurry is being used.
Yes, sir. Because bentonite slurry, even less weight of bentonite, if we add to soil, we could get viscous fluid. Bentonite added with water, we get viscous fluid, and which has got a thixotropic property. So because of its viscosity, what happens is it is going to give more stabilizing effect during excavation. And nowadays, I could see people are adding some nanomaterial also. Bentonite is being replaced by nanomaterial. Even in LNT, people are going for nanomaterial. and even not completely replacing bentonite. They add little nanomaterial so that we get the good working space. Another thing is bentonite is a conventional material. Even for casting our board pile wall, we make use of bentonite. We are comfortable in using bentonite, and it is low cost. It is a thixotropic material, and it can easily form a thick filter cake. It will not allow the adjacent water, even if there is some water present, it will not allow it to seep through our excavation area during our excavation. That is one of the
That's why the specific gravity of bentonite is measured at regular intervals.
Yes, sir. We have to do the test. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because of the thixotropic property, and as you rightly said, it is also used in board cast in situ piles.
Yes, sir.
Another question is for black soil, which foundation is best in urban areas?
Black cotton soil. In black cotton soil, definitely black cotton soil is a problematic soil. In urban area, mostly we would be going for high-rise building. Generally, black cotton soil may not give a swelling in case of heavily loaded structure. If you want to adopt foundation, I suggest this with the bulb, the pile foundation with the bulb we have to provide, sir, so that it cannot swell. It will not be fixed.
And the last question, I think, which is, I do not know how come the questioner has got this idea.
Okay.
Because when you were talking about diaphragm walling after excavation, whether the excavated soil can be used in concreting, which cannot be ice.
Yes, sir. This excavated soil, we may not collect it separately, because during excavation, simultaneously, slurry is being injected into the slot, into the trench. Slurry is being injected. Then the clamshell removes the excavation. Then the soil mixed with the bentonite will come. That will be transferred to the another plant, and the slurry will be segregated. This debris will be segregated. So we may not, why we may not use debris is, debris are not having this stabilizing effect. They are not a thixotropic fluid, number one. Viscosity of our debris, it could be sand, it could be any soil. And see, if we use another soil with a higher density, then it cannot give the stabilizing effect. Mainly, we want to use a thixotropic fluid to make the slurry supported trench.
Can you take one more question? The person has posted. One more question. Yeah, I could see length of micropile is uniform in length, even though pressure diagram is linearly variable. Any reason for that?
Sorry, sir. Please, once again.
The length of the micropile.
Yes, sir.
Was it uniform in length, even though pressure diagram is linearly variable? Even though pressure diagram is variable, the length of micropile was looking to be uniform. Is it true?
No, sir. Actually, the very idea of providing micropile, especially in the site, is just till we construct our basement floor, we don't want the adjacent foundation to fail. That is a temporary measure. That too after failure of that phase. Since in that particular phase, the contiguous pile is being failed, immediately we want to restore that. Only for a temporary period, we wanted that foundation to be intact. That is why micropiling was given. No proper design for that. That's a temporary one. Quickly, we wanted to excavate in the site and construct the basement floor. Once if we construct our basement floor, there won't be any distress to the adjacent foundation.
Thank you so much, madam. So let me hand over to ICAI Puducherry Center for the vote of thanks, and thanks from Ramco Cement side so that you have come here and you have shared your valuable presentation. Over to ICAI Puducherry Center for the vote of thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. There's one last question here.
Yes, sir.
From Sivaganand, sir. This is for the grind wall design.
Yes, sir.
At the rest condition, it seems in the presentation it is uneconomical. Please throw some light on it.
Yes, sir. Usually, the theory will tell us to go for at rest condition. At rest means prior to excavation, soil is at rest. We are not disturbing the existing soil. According to Rankine's theory, for at rest condition, the coefficient K naught is equal to 1 minus sin phi. The equation used to calculate K naught is 1 minus sin phi. Suppose if we excavate, what happens is there is a chance for soil to slide. Once the soil relaxes, what happens is stress is going to be reduced. The soil will change its state from at rest to active. So even after constructing guide wall, we are going to excavate the soil. Once we excavate, the adjacent soil will try to move from at rest condition to active state. I can say that at rest coefficient K will be 0.5. Ka at rest will be 0.3. At rest 1 minus sin phi. At rest 0.5. For active state, Ka is going to be 0.33. So lateral earth pressure is equal to K times vertical stress. If we use 0.5 vertical stress, then lateral stress is higher. So for that much lateral stress, we have to design the wall. If more lateral stress is going to occur there, then we are going to choose thicker guide wall. But the guide wall is a temporary wall. Only during construction, we are going to make use of that. After construction, it is not required. So what I feel is, if we can choose active state, because in active state only 0.3 is going to be the value of Ka. So your lateral earth pressure is lesser. In that situation, we can save some money, and the experience says that for guide wall design, no need to consider at rest condition. We can save some money comfortably.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, madam, for this.
Yes, sir.
First, I have to thank you for having this topic, because this is almost the need of the hour, wherein geotechnically is being used only for a record purpose or for when there is an issue. It is not actually being used in a day-to-day basis. And thank you for your active participation in this thing. And one more thing, Sivanand sir also has been very active in getting this topic. I have to thank both of you for this.
Thank you, sir.
And
It's my pleasure, sir, in fact.
okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And I thank all the ICA Puducherry chapter members and our VP, sir, Mr. Suresh sir, for being pushing us for going for this webinar for the last 3 weeks. And one more thing is the entire webinar team. Sir has had a webinar team which has got our patrons, advisors, and industry players as well as academicians who have been actively participating by giving us all the inputs. And we have almost more than 120 participants till date. And I also thank the Ramco Cements for being actually 300 participants have been here. And one more thing is we have to thank Ramco Cements for giving us this wonderful platform, which has given we have been able to reach more people, because in the other platforms would have been very limited. And moreover, there was a very nice presentation. And thank you on behalf of the Puducherry Center. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
So much, sir. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.